What's up, guys? I'm going to be reacting to Paul Saladino's most recent What I Eat in a Day video.
I'm going to show you what I eat in a day in October of 2024. I basically still eat an animal-based diet. It's meat, it's organs, it's fruit, it's honey, it's raw dairy. Tweak some things since last year's video, so I want to show you all the details of this, give you some ideas of how to create this type of a diet in your life. It's something that I think helps a lot of people. I don't think you need to eat exactly like me. I want this to be
Notice how he's switched up his views over time. Now he's saying, you don't have to eat like me. You can, eat whatever you want. Dude, that does not actually change anything if you try to appeal to everybody.
All right, let's get into it. The first thing I do in the morning is go outside, touch the earth with my bare feet, do some grounding, do some stretching, get the sunlight in my eyes, and then basically within half an hour of
That's a pretty good morning routine. I think it's good to get sunlight and to go outside.
waking up, I'll have my first pre-surf mini meal, which is raw goat's milk from a local farm. I've actually been to this farm. They're incredible people. I've milked the goats there. I've seen the goats. They take really great care of their goats. So I have raw goat milk from the farm. I add some glyphosate-free honey, and I add about 5 grams of creatine.
Okay, so it is funny because a few years ago, he said you should never take any supplements. The only supplements you should take are dried organ capsules. But then now this guy makes his own creatine supplement. I'm like, okay, sort of like a sellout move there.
I might have a little bit of watermelon juice before I go surf, but that is pretty much it.
That's an insane amount of sugar first thing. Holy crap.
I'm in the car and I'm in the ocean. I try to be in the ocean by 6 a.m. I'll surf for a couple hours and then I come back and eat breakfast. After I get home from surfing, hopefully I caught a few waves. I'll make scrambled eggs, avocado, mango slices, and some watermelon juice, which I make myself.
Okay, so how is this an animal-based breakfast? You have a huge glass of fruit juice, a few eggs, a couple eggs, a bowl of avocado, and a bowl of mango. This is by every definition a fruit-based diet because it's literally based on fruit. Right, so look at his breakfast from a few years ago. Notice how it's much more animal-based. This is from, I believe, 2022. He has raw liver. Nice. Very, very good. Then he has a couple of burger patties with some raw sour cream, raw kefir, and some papaya. Notice how back then he was much more animal-based. Now he's basically fruit-based. He just eats mostly fruit.
Scrambled eggs, but it tastes amazing, and the yolks are basically raw. If you're worried about getting sick, like salmonella or campylobacter from raw yolks, you don't really need to be concerned about.
Okay, so first of all, there's no concrete proof that germs cause illnesses. Blaming germs for causing illnesses is basically the same as blaming firemen for causing fires, right? Just because the bacteria are there does not mean that they cause illnesses. That's a whole other topic. I can make more videos about that, but there's no concrete proof for that. Sorry.
This, if those are on the outside of the shell, which is rare but possible, if the yolk membrane is still intact, it hasn't actually touched the outside of the shell, and the chance of contamination is very, very low. If you're really worried about that stuff, fine. Cook your yolks too, but I feel fine just cooking the whites and eating the yolks raw, which I kind of mix in there, or I just heat them a very small amount. So I'm trying to get the fluffiest scrambled eggs with the most amount of nutrients in the yolk that haven't been heated. That's just how I do it. You guys decide if you like it that way, but
It is super funny how he tries so hard to appeal to his normie audience, which are probably his future customers, for his creatine and coffee that he sells now. Which is crazy because he was talking trash about coffee for years, which, I mean, I don't like coffee either because it's toxic, but anyways, it's just crazy.
avocado is a fruit. Why do I make the distinction? Vegetables are the leaves, the stems, the roots, and the seeds of plants. They contain more defense chemicals. I'm not a huge fan of them. If you can tolerate vegetables, that's great, but for
Literally, a few years ago, he was basically saying, never eat vegetables. They're so bad for you. They contain so many toxins. Don't eat them. Now he's like, well, you can eat them if you want to. Dude, just say what's on your mind. Say what you believe. This is absolute sellout behavior.
people like me and a lot of people with autoimmune disease or gut issues, cutting out or eliminating vegetables seems to help with those conditions. Fruit, we know, has much lower amounts of plant defense chemicals. This is the whole idea of an animal-based diet or a carnivore diet. You guys know that I used to do a carnivore diet, have now transitioned to this type of eating. Why do I call it an animal-based diet? Because it is based around
But it's not based on animals. What do you mean? Like, your breakfast is literally fruit-based because it's based on fruit. 3/4 of your meal is fruit. How can you call it animal-based? A true animal-based diet is maybe 6 to 8 eggs with, a glass of kefir. If you're going to eat fruit, maybe a small, bowl of seasonal wild fruit. That's an animal-based diet, not 3/4 of your meal fruit. That's not what animal-based is.
around animal foods. What have I had so far today? I've had animal milk, I've had goat milk, I've had some eggs, and then I've added in some of the least toxic plant foods. You'll see as I go through my day that I'm eating fruit and I'm eating meat and I'm eating animal foods. And that's basically how I compose my diet. The majority of my calories are coming from animal foods.
So, he believes that his diet is animal-based because most of his calories are coming from animal foods. But no, that's not what animal-based is, because most of the food volume should be animal foods, not calories. Because if you're really going off of calories, then vegetarians are also animal-based. Most of a vegetarian's calories come from milk and eggs that they eat too, right? So you cannot call your diet animal-based because most of the calories come from animal foods. That's very faulty logic.
Things like eggs, things like beef tallow, things like steak or meat, things like liver, heart, and things like milk or yogurt and this kind of stuff. And then I'm adding in the least toxic plant foods for most people. Again, if you're thriving, don't change anything about your diet. A lot of people can tolerate vegetables, especially if they're fermented or well cooked.
But what do you mean? 99% of people are not thriving whatsoever. So how can you say that? Weird video.
But for those of us with gut issues or autoimmune issues that seem to be recalcitrant, cutting those things out is a powerful tool. And a lot of doctors don't talk about this at all. So that's my breakfast. Next is lunch. Okay, so this is what my lunch usually looks like. Between breakfast and lunch, I usually do research, podcasting, thinking about social media content, creative stuff. Eat lunch around noon or 1 p.m. during the day. And I'm usually gonna eat something like skirt steak. It's grass-fed, grass-finished, regeneratively raised. And I think about the salt that I put on the steak.
This meal's okay. I mean, it's not animal-based because, half of the actual cutting board is just plants. Don't get me wrong, it's better than what the average person eats. It absolutely is. But I just don't like how he uses the animal-based label on it if most of what he eats is fruit.
Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, about 100 grams. I am gonna do some fresh squeezed orange juice. I get all of my produce from farmers markets here. It's all organic, or so they tell me. And I like to make my own orange juice. I don't worry about the sugar.
So he's had 3 ginormous glasses of fruit juice with a bunch of fruit. This guy says that he drinks about a watermelon's worth of juice per day on top of other fruit. So that's an insane amount of sugar. And that's why he has aged about 15 years in about 5 years.
Sugar and orange juice, I'm very active. And there's tons of research showing that orange juice, watermelon juice, grape juice, all the juices really improve endothelial function inside of your blood vessels.
Okay, but how do they even track that, though? This guy always sort of critiques centralized science about cholesterol, saturated fat, which, I agree with. But when it comes to his sugar addiction, all of a sudden, this science is totally fine. So he cherry picks science to fit his own views.
Decrease lipid peroxidation, they decrease DNA damage. So I'm getting...
Okay, DNA damage. There's a lot of things wrong here. I already have explained flaws with the modern day genetic theory, germ theory. All of these topics are being discussed on my Instagram page. Like, I can link videos by Beyond Terrain in the description debunking these theories, but this is obvious BS science he is citing here.
But I do not believe, and I will make this very clear, I do not believe there is any evidence that fruit or fruit juice contribute to insulin resistance or diabetes in any way, shape, or form in humans. In fact, there is good evidence that watermelon juice and many of the fruit juices actually improve insulin sensitivity and improve glucose tolerance. There's actually been a study done where they gave people watermelon juice, interestingly enough.
Type 2 diabetes is able to be reversed going on a keto diet, though.
When they were doing a glucose tolerance test, and those patients' glucose tolerance actually improved when they had the...
What I mean is that I don't think that adding in a bunch of sugar would cure a type 2 diabetic.
Cucumbers are fruit, not a vegetable. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the leaves, the stems, the roots, the seeds of plants. I feel better without it. My autoimmune issues, which are eczema and asthma, are much better when I don't eat vegetables. But if you can eat vegetables, knock yourself out.
Notice how he always frames things as, this just works for me, but it might not work for you. This mainstream, sanitized message, right? He doesn't say, no, I believe that this is the best way to eat for X, Y, and Z reasons. He just says, do whatever works for you. Having this super passive, sanitized message doesn't actually change any paradigm. It does not change anybody's mind. This guy watered down his message like crazy.
Some grass-fed ground beef. Ground beef is amazing. It has a lot of collagenous parts of the animal in it, a lot of the stuff that's a little tougher, and it's super...
He probably has awesome quality meat. I must give it to him, though. So why doesn't he try to make beef tartare?
So I like ground beef for collagen. and I like it because it's affordable. Again, grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef that I actually got at a farmer's market here. I've got some raw liver, and I just...
That's great. Awesome.
Raw, I freeze it before, I trust the butcher, and I trust that the liver is high quality. There's always a risk to eating anything raw, whether it's raw milk or raw organs, but I've never gotten sick from eating raw liver, knock on wood. I've got some dragon...
Man, this absolute germ theory propaganda.
That stuff is amazing. It's much more available here in the tropics, and it's delicious. And I've got some more watermelon juice and raw milk with honey. If you can't eat liver, if you don't have access...
Way too much sugar, though. What has he had so far? Like 4 glasses of fruit juice, a bunch of fruit. Like, this is way too much fruit, dude. Way too much sugar.
A lot of days I'll add some heart as well, but if you don't want to do that, do freeze-dried organs like heart and soil.
The raw liver has way more nutrients than this dead, dried-out supplement.
Okay, so let me show you guys how I do liver. I just take the raw piece in your mouth, swallow it down the hatch just like that. You don't have to do that. I just feel like that's the easiest way to do it. You could also cook.
The liver must taste bad then, because like fresh liver tastes sweet though. It does not taste bitter or bad. So he must have not so great quality liver then.
It's an animal-based diet. It's organs like liver, heart, meat, grass.
Okay, so how is this animal-based? I mean, sure, yeah, he definitely eats more meat than the average person, at least in the US, but what Paul promoted a few years ago was, but not anymore.
But long-term ketosis did not work well for me. I don't think it works well for a lot of people. Again, I don't fear fruit. I don't fear fruit juice. I don't think these things...
But how, though? Because our ancestors were basically in ketosis for most of the year, though. Fruits were only in season for maybe a couple months out of the year. But yeah, sure, back then we didn't eat zero carb because there's glycogen in the blood of the animal, but we were definitely in ketosis for most of the year, for, hundreds of thousands of years.
I'm not a huge fan of grains. I've done previous videos about why I don't love oatmeal. I'm not a fan...
This guy is watering down his views. A few years ago, he was saying, don't eat grains, don't eat this, don't eat that. But then now he's like, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't really like it that much. This guy's appealing to a broader audience to sell his meat sticks.
But if you can tolerate sourdough, more power to you. I'm kind of jealous. But this is just what makes me feel better. The whole idea here is just...
Jealous. So he's jealous of people that can eat ground up seeds baked in an oven. Wow.
About what are the most nutrient-rich foods that you can eat that help you feel the best, that help you improve your gut issues or your autoimmune issues, that give you good libido, good sleep, good muscle tone, that help you lose weight. And this is an option that I think works for a lot of people. Animal-based diet. Hopefully this video helps you guys understand how I construct an animal-based diet every day. I will see you in the next video.
All right, guys. I mean, overall, his message is obviously better than what the mainstream is, but what I don't like is that he is softening his views. He's sanitizing his views to appeal to the broader audience, which is bad because he's compromising what he actually believes in. But overall, he eats way too much sugar, way too much fruit. He exercises way too much, and that's why he has aged 15 years in about 5 years. So better than the average diet, but not ideal. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.